날 뭘로 보고?
사실 바둑이는 사랑에 대한 감정을 아예 모른다고 생각을 합니다. 우정이라는 것도 진실된 우정에 대해서는 잘 모르고 그냥 친구 그런 거라고 생각을 하는데 고난과 역경이 옴으로써 우정에 대한 진실된 의미와 뭔가 이 사랑에 대한 의미가 뭐인지 찾아가면서 마지막에 그거를 깨닫는 그런 상황인 것 같습니다.
난 여기서 우리 오빠 기다려야 돼.
오흘이나 됐다면서.
갑자기 해외 나갔을 거야. 전에도 그런 적이 있거든. 그때는 10일 정도였어. 10일.
10일? 세리야 괜찮아. 이분은 우리 동네 이거야.
집 나온 지 얼마나 됐다고?
5흘 됐대요.
닷새겠지.
네, 그거야.
집은 어딘데?
그 개포동이래요.
아이, 내가 너한테 물어봤냐? 단내가 나네. 집이 어디라고?
개포동.
이요. 바둑아, 너 나 좀 보자.
당시에는 봉천동과 개포동은 사실은
제 집까지
경제적으로
데려다
큰
줄
차이가
수 있겠냐?
있었어요. 봉천동 산동네는
내 말에
빈민가의 어떤 상징성이
데려다 줄 수
있었고
있겠어?
개포동은 개도 포동포동하다는 동네라 그래서 너무 잘 먹고 잘 사는 동네였습니다.
차로 다니는 길로 다니다간 죽기 십상이고 저 양재동 청계산을 넘어가면 개포동에 갈 수 있거든. 그럼 쟤는 알아서 찾아갈 거다. 할 수 있겠냐?
잠깐만요. 청계산이면 아까. 오, 안 돼. 늑대가 얼마나 하다고요?
너보다 2배.
이게 꼭 어느 장면뿐만이 아니라 계속 여정을 떠나면서 바둑이가 세리를 위해서 하는 장면들이 곳곳에 있어요. 그러면서 점점 마음을 열게 되고 점점 그 우정과 사랑을 알게 되는 것 같아요. 그다음에 늑대라는 가장 큰 위험한 존재를 통해서 나를 위해서 목숨까지 걸고 싸워주는 바둑이를 통해서 또 그거에 대한 진심을 또 알게 되고 하는 것 같아요.
건동아 빨리 와. 가고 있어. 조심해. 밀지 마. 내가 건너가볼까? 그래라. 안 말려? 널 말릴 용기가 없어. 내가 자신 있으면 실천하는 거야. 아니, 내가 자신 있어서가 아니고 이렇게까지 해야 너희한테 지면 안 될 것 같아서 그러는 건데. 좋은 생각이야. 그래? 화이팅.
화이팅.
조심해. 조심해. 나 못 가. 검둥아. 오, 조심해. 검둥아. 할머니한테 죽었다고 전해주라. 안 돼. 내 손 잡아.
검둥아, 넌 불독이야.
그래, 불독.
힘이 아주 센 불독. 싸움꾼. 네 조상이 그런 기질이야.
뛰어, 검둥아. 지금 뛰어.
세상에 거의 모든 사람들이 사랑의 조건을 걸죠. 나를 사랑해줘야 사랑하고 내가 사랑할 수 있을 조건이 있어야 사랑을 해주고. 그런데 걔들에게는 조건이 없다고 봐요. 서로가 서로를 향해서 느껴지는 감정들, 그 감정에 집중한다고 보거든요. 바둑이와 세리 역시 바둑이가 느낀 감정, 세리가 느낀 감정, 오롯이 그 감정으로만 서로를 대한다고 봐요. 그리고 그것이 결국 우리 모두가 지향하는 사랑의 모습이 아닐까 하는 생각을 합니다. 그건 과거나 지금이나 어떤 공통된 생각들이라고 봐요.
할매?
할매? 할매가 누구야? 그 봉천도. 정신 차려! 체계봐라! 후렌 인간들에 의해 강제로 분양된 이상가족이야. 부모의 얼굴도 모를 때 유리창에 진열됐지. 아마도 너희가 말한 할매는 어쩌면
버려진 개는 울지 않는다.
내가 누구라고?
구원자 체계봐라.
저 개봐라! 저 개봐라! 개관천선 사람들의 손가락질 소리 저 개봐라! 저 개봐라! 너희들은 내가 누군지 몰랐지. 리더가 나타났다. 저 개봐라! 체계봐라! 저 개봐라! 체계봐라! 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 사람보다 솔직해.
관객이 느끼고자 했던 포인트는 순수한 사랑. 그러니까 사랑의 정의를 내릴 수는 없지만 떨림, 사춘기 시작할 때 그 느낌처럼 버무려져 있기 때문에 그 공감대를 형성하는 데 있어서 자극 포인트를 좀 많이 줬었고요. 저의 정서는 위트와 유머, 그다음에 해학 뭐 이런 정도에서 진지할 때 한 번씩 반대로 가는 현상을 좀 주다 보니까 좀 이중적 감정이 충돌되다 보니까 되게 좋아하시는 것 같아요. 그래서 너무 진지하지도 않고 또 너무 유쾌하려고 노력하지도 않는 그 절반의 상황에 있기 때문에 네, 저는 이게 초연이지만 오리지널이고 그래도 이후의 반응을 보면서 조금 더 확장성을 갖는 그런 연출을 또 해보고 싶다라는 생각이 듭니다.
레지스탕스! 검둥아, 니들 왜 이래?
야, 너희들은 방금 전까지 바둑이 친구들이었잖아. 야, 이런 상황에서 친구를 도와야 하는 거 아니야?
내 친구를 유혹해서 끌어들인 거 너야. 니 때문에 우리만 개고생했잖아. 제발 정신 좀 차려, 동구야. 니나 정신 차려. 세리는 아프다, 야. 그리고 뭐?
저기는 뛰어내려서 살아있다면
우리가 굳건히 용기 있게 살아가면 어떠한 상황에 처해 있더라도 행복하게 살 수 있는 거 아닌가? 이 삶을 되게 의미 있게 산 거 아닌가라는 생각을 하게 되어서 사람들이 다 각자의 다른 상황에 처해 있지만 이 공연을 보고 되게 재밌고 위트 있고 뭐 따뜻한 감동적인 내용이지만 또 자기를 돌아봤을 때 잘 살고 있구나라는 걸 좀 느끼셨으면 좋겠어요.
Time to set the facts straight. Get Korea right.
안녕하세요. 저는 방크에서 활동하는 홍단비 청년연구원입니다. 대한민국이라는 국가가 존재한다는 사실을 전 세계에 알리는 공식적인 징표이자 국민을 하나로 통합하게 하는 힘을 가진 이것. 바로 태극기인데요. 일제강점기 당시 태극기는 우리 민족을 하나로 통합시키는 구심점 같은 역할을 하기도 했죠. 대한민국 국기인 태극기에 대해 잘못 알고 있거나 오해하는 부분들이 가끔 발견되더라고요. 제가 태극기에 담긴 의미와 역사에 대해 제대로 알려드릴게요. 최초의 태극기는 1882년에 처음 만들어졌다고 해요. 이후 다양한 형태의 태극기가 제작됐다가 지금은 국가에서 국기를 체계적으로 관리하는 법을 만들어 시행하고 있어요. 태극기에 담긴 의미를 알아볼까요? 먼저 흰색 바탕은 밝음과 순수, 그리고 평화를 사랑하는 우리의 민족성을 나타내요. 태극기 가운데에는 태극 문양이 들어가는데요. 이 태극 문양은 우주 만물이 음양의 조화로 인해 생물을 얻고 발전한다는 대자연의 진리를 표현한 것이라고 해요. 다음으로 건공감리를 그려볼게요. 4개 모서리에 그린 4괴에는 각기 다른 의미가 있어요. 건괴는 하늘, 곤괴는 땅, 감괴는 물, 이괴는 불을 상징해요. 우리 선조들이 생활 속에서 즐겨 쓰던 태극 문양을 중심으로 만들어진 태극기는 우주와 더불어 끝없이 창조와 번영을 바라는 우리 민족의 이상을 담고 있답니다. 대한민국의 정체성과 자긍심을 드러내고 우리 민족을 하나로 뭉치게 하는 태극기, 우리의 자랑스러운 국가 상징입니다. 한국 바로 알리기, 여러분도 함께 해주세요.
저는 이제 손글씨 쓰는 거를 되게 좋아했었는데요. 처음에는 이제 취미로 시작을 했고 이제 하다 보니까 글씨를 쓰는 행위 자체가 정서적으로 돌봄을 시켜주더라고요. 제가 많이 힘든 시기에 글씨를 쓰기 시작했었거든요. 돌이켜보면 힘든 시기를 글씨로 극복했었던 것 같아요. 이제 글이 갖는 힘이 있어요. 네, 그래서 이제 저도 글씨를 처음에 형적으로만 이렇게 표현을 하고 그림 그리듯이 썼었거든요. 근데 쓰다 보니까 점점 글을 쓰게 되더라고요. 이제 글이 글씨가 되고 글씨가 글이 되고 이 메시지적인 부분이 크다 보니까 그런 어떤 직관적인 힘을 갖고 있는 것 같아요. 이렇게 글씨를 쓰는 행위 자체가 되게 아름답다고 느꼈거든요. 그래서 이걸 쓰는 순간을 한번 예술로 만들어 보면 좋겠다 해서 제가 글씨를 원래는 이렇게 책상 위에서 썼다면 어떤 벽면에 세우듯이 마치 춤을 추듯이 그렇게 이제 글씨를 퍼포먼스 공연으로 한번 해볼까 해서 이렇게 시작하게 된 것 같아요. 외국인분들도 이걸 뜻을 알지 못해도 되게 아름답다고 느끼시고 예쁘게 봐주시는 것 같더라고요. 여러 기억이 있지만 또 카타르에서의 경험이 되게 기억이 나요. 어떤 분이 이제 보시면서 우시더라고요. 그런 장면들이 어쩌면 저를 계속 이렇게 하게 하는 그런 원동력이 되는 것 같기도 해요. 해외 나가면 오히려 더 애국심이 생기더라고요. 그래서 세계 시장으로 나가고 싶어요. 공연이 될 수도 있고 교육이 될 수도 있을 것 같아요. 이런 한글을 쓰는 행위 자체가 지금은 사실 손글씨도 잘 안 쓰는 시대지만 오히려 이런 시대일수록 되게 더 가치 있는 일이 될 것 같다고 이제 제가 믿거든요. 그리고 제가 그런 역할을 할 수 있으면 되게 좋을 것 같아요.
In our headlines on this Thursday, December 11th, here in South Korea, a filibuster is underway at the National Assembly amid the first plenary meeting of its December extraordinary session as the main opposition party finds fault with the ruling party's drive for judicial reform. Meanwhile, President Lee today convenes his administration's first briefing of government agency operations, starting with the Ministry of Economy and Finance. And the U.S. Federal Reserve cuts its benchmark interest rate by 0.25 percentage points, lowering the federal funds rate to between 3.5% and 3.75%. The Parliament's December extraordinary session opened its first plenary meeting today, and it's being dominated by a filibuster launched by the main opposition party against the ruling party's judicial reform drive. Our political correspondent Moon Hae-ryun has the latest.
Proceedings for the December session opened with yet another marathon filibuster as lawmakers clashed over judicial reform and the handling of routine bills. Thursday's plenary session began with a long-delayed vote on the Fair Transactions in Franchise Business Act, postponed earlier when the Assembly adjourned mid-filibuster. After its passage, lawmakers moved on to the rest of the agenda. The People Power Party then launched a new filibuster, beginning with amendments to the Criminal Procedure Act, which includes provisions for expanded access to lower court rulings. PPP floor leader Song Won-seok reaffirmed the party's plan to filibuster in protest of the Democratic Party's judicial reform push.
The nature of the 8 evil bills is clear. Creating a special tribunal for insurrection cases and establishing a new judicial distortion offense are blatant violations of the separation of powers and judicial independence. Expanding the number of Supreme Court justices and abolishing the Court Administration Office appear to be unjustified attempts to reshape the judiciary to fit the administration's preferences.
The DP criticized the move, saying that the PPP had once again demonstrated its lack of willingness to cooperate.
This is not lawmaking. It is holding people's livelihoods hostage. The Democratic Party will fulfill its responsibilities to the end. No matter how much they try to obstruct us, we will keep moving forward for the sake of the people.
2 more bills remain on the agenda: amendments to the Banking Act and the Act on the Performance of Duties by Police Officers. These amendments cover limits on banks' use of extra fees on interest rates and new police authority in border areas. Under National Assembly rules, a filibuster can only be terminated after 24 hours have elapsed and at least 3/5 of lawmakers vote in favor. With each item requiring a separate vote to end each filibuster, the remaining bills are expected to pass by the 14th. Moon Hae-ryun, Arirang News.
And it's been 6 months since the Lee Jae-myung administration took office, and today the president partook in the first briefing of government operations, starting with the Ministry of Economy and Finance. Our correspondent Park Jun-han reports.
The economy was chosen by President Lee Jae-myung as his first topic to be briefed on in the first round of ministerial briefings started by his administration. But before going into the details, Lee opened the meeting by emphasizing the importance of public service above all.
정말 운명적으로 중요한 지점이잖아요. 지금 대한민국이 그런 분수령 또는 분기점에 서 있는 것 같습니다. 우리 공직자 여러분들의 이 나라의 미래도 달려있고 여러분 다음 세대들의 삶도 달려있다. 이렇게 생각하고 책임감을 가지고 열심히 해 주실 것으로 확실히 믿습니다.
Following President Lee's opening speech, the Ministry of Economy and Finance started the session, evaluating the government's economic achievements over the past 6 months and how the ministry would move forward to bring meaningful changes next year.
The administration has pushed forward key economic measures, including emergency response efforts, a swift supplementary budget, a new growth strategy, tariff agreements, tax system normalization, and the timely passage of the 2026 budget. As a result, growth reached a 15-quarter high, and the KOSPI surpassed 4,000 points, with broader signs of recovery across the economy.
However, the finance minister did mention some hardships lying ahead. For example, South Korea's economy faces multiple challenges, including a decline in potential growth rate, polarization, and latent risks in the foreign exchange and real estate markets. The government has announced it will proactively pursue key tasks, including making 2026 the first year of a major leap forward. Starting from Thursday, President Yi will also receive work reports covering 228 public institutions and related organizations, including 19 ministries, 5 agencies, 18 commissions, and 7 committees. 박준환, Arirang News.
President Lee Jae-myung will play host to his Lao counterpart Thongloun Sisoulith next Monday. According to presidential spokesperson Kang Yoo-jung, the Lao president and his spouse will begin a 2-day official visit to South Korea this coming Sunday at the invitation of President Lee Jae-myung. On the summit agenda are trade and security, as well as cooperation against online scams. The summit between the two leaders comes in line with this year's 30th anniversary of the re-establishment of diplomatic ties between South Korea and Laos. Unification Minister Chung Dong-young has reaffirmed his intentions to pursue engagement with Pyongyang in the new year. Our correspondent Oh Seong covers his remarks.
South Korea will renew its push to reopen talks with North Korea next year, anticipating major regional shifts with the upcoming US-China summit. On Wednesday, Unification Minister Chung Dong-young held an off-camera conference with correspondents, setting the tone for his priorities next year, saying he will strive to turn 2026 into a base year for peace and coexistence. On promoting dialogue with Pyongyang, he pointed to a major diplomatic event, the April meeting between US President Donald Trump and his counterpart Xi Jinping in Beijing, noting that the two leaders could influence North Korea's strategic calculations and set the tone for regional engagement. Chung said Seoul must be ready if Pyongyang recalibrates its position and allows even a minimal opening for contact, particularly as North Korea enters a period of internal reassessment ahead of its 9th Party Congress, reflecting on economic direction and external partnerships. Minister Chung said the South must be proactive in the coming months, not wait for external momentum. According to Chung, this includes lowering confrontation, restoring basic trust, and signaling a clear policy direction based on peaceful coexistence, not the North's subjugation. Chung said revising military posture and lowering confrontation are part of that. He pointed to past cases, noting that the suspension of team spirit in the early 1990s and the delay of South Korea-US combined exercises in 2018 contributed to diplomatic openings. He noted here that military drills are a means, not the purpose. On dealing with North Korea's nuclear program, Chung said the most urgent task is slowing further expansion. He listed 3 immediate priorities: stopping the Yeonbyung reactor, halting the increase in North Korea's warhead stockpile, and freezing uranium enrichment. However, the minister rejected arguments for stronger sanctions or pressure, saying North Korea's nuclear and missile advances have historically accelerated during periods of isolation. Seeking international cooperation on promoting peace on the peninsula, Chung added that Seoul is also widening its diplomatic network, including asking the European Union to consider appointing a special envoy for the Korean peninsula. Oh Seong, Arirang News.
And the U.S. House of Representatives has passed a defense policy bill that restricts military retreat from South Korea, easing months of speculation about a potential reduction in the size of American soldiers stationed here on the Korean peninsula. Our Eun-jin reports.
The U.S. House of Representatives voted to pass a $901 billion defense policy bill on Wednesday for the next fiscal year. The bill's passage on a 312 to 112 vote comes at a time of increasing friction between the Republican-controlled Congress and President Donald Trump's administration over the management of the military. While much of the over 3,000-page bill aligns with President Trump's national security agenda, the U.S. National Defense Authorization Act, or NDAA, reportedly stipulates that the authorized budget may not be used to unilaterally reduce the number of U.S. troops stationed in South Korea below the current level of 28,500. This is the first time in 5 years since the first Trump administration for this measure to reappear in the annual bill. The bill also specifically states that funds allocated under the act may not be used to complete the transfer of wartime operational control from the United States to South Korea in a manner that deviates from the mutually agreed upon plan. Overall, the NDAA calls for a 3.8% pay raise for many military members, as well as housing and facility improvements on military bases. The bill also provides $400 million in military assistance to Ukraine in each of the next 2 years, and includes other measures reinforcing the U.S. commitment to Europe's defense. Lawmakers also included a provision that would withhold a quarter of Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth's travel budget until the Pentagon provides Congress with unedited video of the strikes against alleged drug boats near Venezuela. Having passed the House, the bill is expected to pass in the Senate next week before it lands on President Donald Trump's desk, which the president has said he will sign. The NDAA is one of a few major pieces of legislation to make it through Congress every year, and lawmakers take pride in having passed it annually since 1961. 이은진, Arirang News.
In other news, the Foreign Ministry here is seeking a prompt execution of the new agreement between South Korea and the U.S. that permits the former to enrich uranium and reprocess spent nuclear fuel for peaceful purposes. Now, intentions to this end were shared by Second Vice Foreign Minister Kinsella upon arrival in Washington, D.C. back on Wednesday for the 10th Senior Economic Dialogue with U.S. Under-Secretary of State for Economic Affairs Jacob Hellberg. Last month, the Trump administration shared support for the process that opens up South Korea's civil uranium enrichment and spent fuel reprocessing. Visa waiver travelers to the U.S. may soon be required to provide the Trump administration with access to 5 years of their social media history. Our Lee Seung-jae explains.
The Trump administration is moving to tighten screening for travelers entering the United States through the ESTA visa waiver program. ESTA stands for Electronic System for Travel Authorization, which allows citizens of eligible countries to visit the United States for up to 90 days without a visa. A new notice posted Wednesday by U.S. Customs and Border Protection outlines a proposal that would require applicants to submit social media information from the past 5 years. The agency says it's seeking public comment for 60 days on the plan. The proposal stems from an executive order President Donald Trump signed in January to strengthen protections against foreign terrorists and other national security threats. If implemented, the changes would significantly widen the scope of information reviewed during the travel authorization process. According to the notice, social media accounts would become a mandatory part of every ESTA application. CBP is also considering the addition of what it calls several high-value data fields. These include personal and business phone numbers used in the last 5 years, email addresses used in the last 10 years, and detailed information about applicants' family members, including names, dates, and places of birth, residences, and phone numbers. The agency would also have the authority to request biometric data when needed, including fingerprints, DNA, and iris scans. Another major change is the plan to decommission the current ESTA website and shift all applications to a mobile app, which would become the exclusive platform for submitting new requests. Public comments on the proposal must be submitted by February 9th. Once the review period closes, the administration is expected to move ahead with implementation. If approved, the new requirements would mark one of the most extensive expansions of data collection in the history of the visa waiver program. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
The U.S. Federal Reserve has further lowered its benchmark interest rate by a 0.25 percentage point, marking its third reduction in a row this year. Our An Sung-jin covers this latest cut.
The U.S. Federal Reserve has cut its benchmark interest rate by 0.25 percentage points, bringing the rate to its lowest level in more than 3 years. It announced on Wednesday that Federal Open Market Committee had lowered the federal funds rate from the previous 3.75 to 4% range to 3.5 to 3.75%. The Fed's decision marks the third consecutive rate cut since September, lowering the rate by a total of 0.75 percentage points this year. It cited an uncertain economy, including a slowdown in employment growth rate as well as rising inflation. Of the 12 voting members, 9 supported the decision while 3 opposed. The Chicago Fed president and Kansas City Fed president argued that the policy rate be left unchanged, while board member Christopher Waller, a close ally of U.S. President Donald Trump, pushed for a deeper 0.5 percentage point reduction.
Everyone around the table at the FOMC agrees that inflation is too high and that we want it to come down. Where the difference is how do you weight those risks and what does your forecast look like? And
regarding future rate cuts, the Fed used more cautious language, saying it would consider the extent and timing of additional adjustments. As the U.S. benchmark rate fell to 3.75% following the Fed's latest decision, the rate gap with South Korea has narrowed to 1.25 percentage points, based on the upper limit of the U.S. rate range. Meanwhile, U.S. President Donald Trump spoke about the Fed's decision.
I mean, this guy, the head of the Federal Reserve, is a stiff. He did a rather small number that could have been doubled, at least doubled.
On Wall Street, attention is now shifting to who will become the next Fed chair, with Kevin Hassett, head of the White House National Economic Council, considered as a leading candidate. The finalists could come as early as later this month. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, in the latest development with regard to the data leak of nearly 34 million users of e-commerce giant Coupang, its CEO Park Tae-jun has tendered his resignation. Our Park Gon-woo reports.
11 days after Coupang's massive data leak came to light, the company's CEO Park Tae-jun stepped down on Wednesday, saying he would take responsibility. While some see the move as effectively a dismissal, for now Harold Rogers, CEO and general counsel of the firm's U.S. headquarters, Coupang Inc., will take over temporarily to stabilize operations and calm customers down. That comes as civic groups, including the Korea Consumer Federation, held a press conference on Wednesday announcing that they filed for collective dispute mediation, seeking compensation of up to around $340 per person. And as the fallout grows, South Korea's Prime Minister Kim Min-seok, during a national policy coordination meeting on Wednesday, spoke firmly on how the government will deal with the case.
In a digital society, protecting people's personal information is the most fundamental responsibility of platform companies. The government will conduct a swift and thorough investigation into the cause of the incident and take strict action against any violations of the law. We'll also thoroughly prepare institutional reforms.
The Prime Minister's office also announced plans to reinforce information security systems and expand executive accountability, shifting from a reactive approach to a preventive one. As the Personal Information Protection Commission, working under a joint public and private investigation team, looks into whether Coupang violated mandatory safety measure requirements related to the leak, the commission spoke on Wednesday about how the company should revise its clauses.
As Coupang's terms of service are unclear about the company's liability and burden of proof for damages caused by intent or negligence, creating confusion for users, we requested that Coupang revise the clauses.
The commission also said it had asked Coupang to simplify its overly complicated membership withdrawal process. Although these measures are recommendations rather than mandatory orders, Coupang is required to submit the results of its actions within 7 days. Police also continued their search and seizure investigation at Coupang's headquarters on Wednesday morning, marking the second day of the raid after officers spent 10 hours on site the day before. Investigators say more time is needed as the massive data has been difficult to secure, given that the leak is believed to have taken place over several months. Park Gon-woo, Arirang News.
Also on the local front, Oceans and Fisheries Minister Chun Chae-soo has resigned in response to allegations of bribery. Speaking to reporters on this Thursday, Chun claimed the accusations were absurd and unfounded. Nonetheless, he added it was appropriate for him to step down for the benefit of the current administration and the ministry. The presidential office, for its part, has said that the president will accept the resignation. Chun is alleged to have received money and valuables from the Unification Church in return for his support behind the construction of an undersea tunnel between South Korea and Japan.
This is The World Now, bringing you everything you need to know from around the globe. U.S. President Donald Trump has said American forces have seized an oil tanker off the coast of Venezuela as tensions escalate between Trump and Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. The U.S. Coast Guard, supported by the Navy, carried out the seizure on Wednesday, with personnel transported by helicopter from the USS Gerald R. Ford aircraft carrier. A day earlier, U.S. fighter jets flew over the Gulf of Venezuela in their closest pass to the country's airspace during the current pressure campaign against Maduro. It remains unclear who owns the tanker or what flag it was sailing under. Trump said the U.S. would, quote, keep the oil abroad. Staying with Venezuela, opposition leader Maria Corina Machado was absent from Wednesday's Nobel Peace Prize ceremony in Oslo. Her daughter Ana Corina Sosa accepted the award as Machado said she could not arrive in time. The Wall Street Journal reports she left Venezuela by sea for Curaçao with U.S. support on Tuesday. And the AP reports that she has now arrived in Oslo, where she greeted supporters from a hotel balcony early on Thursday. Machado has been in hiding since January when she was briefly detained after joining a protest in Caracas, a day before President Nicolas Maduro was sworn in following a disputed election. She was awarded the Nobel Prize for her work promoting democratic rights in Venezuela. In Morocco on Wednesday, 2 adjacent 4-story buildings collapsed overnight in the city of Fez, killing 22 people. Authorities said 16 others were injured and taken to hospital, and the neighborhood was evacuated. The buildings, constructed in 2006, housed 8 families. Officials said the cause remains unclear and an investigation is underway. In the UK, best-selling author Sophie Kinsella has died at 55, her family said on Wednesday. Kinsella, known for the Shopaholic series of books, was diagnosed in 2022 with glioblastoma, an aggressive brain cancer. Her books have sold more than 50 million copies worldwide and been translated into over 40 languages. Writers including Jojo Moyes, Jodi Picoult, and Adele Parks paid tribute, while her publisher said she leaves, quote, a unique voice and a significant literary legacy. Chu Ji-hyun, Arirang News.
Snow made a return along the East Coast this afternoon and will continue into tomorrow morning. In particular, the mountainous areas and the East Coast areas of Gangwon-do Province could see more than 10 centimeters of heavy snow. Southern areas like Busan warmed up to 17 degrees Celsius today, as warm as early April. However, from tonight, as cold air moves in, temperatures in many areas will drop below freezing tomorrow morning. A cold wave advisory will be in effect for parts of the western regions starting from 9 p.m. tonight. Most areas will start off below 0 degrees, with Seoul at -3 degrees, Gwangju and Daegu at -2 degrees. Highs will rise up to 6 degrees in Seoul and Chuncheon, 10 degrees in Gwangju and Busan. On Saturday, another round of nationwide rain and snow is on the way, with up to 5 centimeters of snow forecast in Seoul. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
Those are the headlines at this hour here in South Korea. Coming up right after this break is our daily panel session.
Korea, a globally recognized sports powerhouse. Behind the dazzling achievements, there's always an invisible force at work. With sophisticated materials, cutting-edge equipment, and innovative technological solutions, SMEs in the K-sports industry play a vital role in bolstering Korea's status as a sports powerhouse. By integrating AI technology, they unlock athletes' potential and enhance performance, elevating the sports environment to the next level and opening new markets in the sports industry. Their innovative technology and bold challenges drive the growth of Korea's sports industry, creating a better world through sports. The innovation of these SMEs never stops. A systematic partnership support program is implemented to discover promising sports SMEs, provide technical validation and R&D support to enhance competitiveness, and strengthen the foundation for overseas expansion. At Tokyo Sportech 2025, the technological prowess of Korean companies was recognized. The Ministry of Culture, Sports and Tourism, and the Korea Sports Promotion Foundation supported K-sports companies with product promotion and business consultations with global buyers, demonstrating product quality and market potential, and confirming the possibility of expanding into the global market.
저희는 ICT 강국으로서 바이어나 사용자들한테 신기술을 접목한 생활 스포츠 기회를 실질적으로 확대할 수 있는 그 기회를 제공하는데 많은 도움이 될 수 있으리라고 확신을 합니다.
이제 스포츠도 K죠. K 스포츠는 이겁니다.
The joy for all, created by the power of K-sports. Experience the future of the new sports industry through the innovation and technology of the Korean sports industry.
관악구 신림동 B103 방공호입니다. 생존자 있으면 대답하십시오.
내 앞에 펼쳐질 눈부신 세상
그래 자유가 넘치는 세상.
Seeking to attract 30 million foreign travelers by the year 2030. We have more on Press Perspective today. Hello and welcome to Thursday's edition of Press Perspective for December 11th here in Seoul. I'm Min Sun-hee. Tourism, it's emerging as an important engine for economic growth, and South Korea is working to take full advantage of this reality. For more on this, I have Professor Shin Hak-sung at Hanyang University live on the line. Professor Shin, it's a pleasure to have you on.
Hi, Sonny. It's great to be on the show again. Thank you for having me.
Right. I also have Chris Tart, contributing writer for The Telegraph, joining us virtually as well. Chris, it's been ages since we last spoke. Welcome back.
Great to be back, Sonny.
Right. Professor Shin, we shall start with you. Let's start off then with the statistics. What are the numbers telling us about travel to South Korea this year among foreign travelers? And also, how big is the country's tourism industry, Professor Shin?
Yes, if we look at the most recent statistics, about 14 million international visitors came to Korea between January and September 2025. That's a 16% increase compared to the same period last year. Korea's all-time record for inbound tourism was 17.5 million visitors in 2019. Considering that tourist arrivals typically peak in the second half of the year, we expect the number of visitors in 2025 to exceed 18.5 million. In other words, Korea is on track to set a new historic record. At the same time, the composition of inbound tourists is also changing. Before the pandemic, Korea relied heavily on Chinese visitors, but after the COVID-19 pandemic, the market has diversified. We are now seeing strong growth not only from China, but also from Japan, Taiwan, the United States, Hong Kong, and other parts of Asia and North America. As of 2024, Korea ranks 23rd globally in terms of inbound tourism volume, which is lower than we might expect given the country's economic size. However, global interest in K-culture and related content has surged as Korean music, dramas, food, and digital content continue to gain worldwide attention. Interest in Korea as a travel destination is also rising. Naturally, this is expanding our pool of potential visitors and driving growth in future inbound tourism demand.
And Chris, then, for the sake of some perspective from the ground, what have you been observing with regard to the number of foreign travelers to the southern port city of Busan?
Well, the numbers that Professor Shin just gave us check out, at least anecdotally, what I've been seeing here in Busan. For example, if you walk the markets or the streets near Haeundae Beach, the big famous beach, of course, and the prime tourist destination here in Busan, you will hear languages from around the world. You hear Chinese and Thai and Japanese, German, French, a lot of English. And again, we are seeing a diversification of the visitors that we've never seen before here. Especially, I arrived in Busan about 21 years ago, and tourism was a trickle. You would see groups of Chinese and Japanese tourists, in places from other places in Asia, but you didn't see any Western tourists. You'd see a lone backpacker and ask them, what are they doing here? But now, it's the gates have been opened, and people are coming to Korea to experience everything that's wonderful that they see in the K-dramas, that they see in the movies, that they hear in the music, and to eat the food. And this is not just in Seoul, it's all over the country, and it's definitely happening here in Busan. So you go to Haeundae, you go to Nampodong near the fish market, and you will see people from around the world. You will hear a whole range of languages being spoken, and people really enjoying what Korea has to offer. So yeah, it feels like kind of a magic time right now as far as tourism is concerned.
Right.
There's something in the air. Korea's having its moment.
Right, and given that momentum, Professor Shin, South Korea aims to attract, like I mentioned at the start of our talk, 30 million foreign travelers by the year 2030. How do authorities plan to execute this ambitious plan, Professor Shin, and what are your thoughts with regard to its prospects?
Yes, to reach 30 million inbound visitors by 2030, Korea needs highly concrete and realistic strategies. The first step is an assessment of whether our current tourism infrastructure can actually accommodate 30 million foreign visitors. This includes not only hotel capacity, but also transportation systems, destination carrying capacity, and the the overall ability of our tourism ecosystem to observe increased demand. Another key point is that Korea must move beyond its Seoul-centric tourism structure. Achieving 30 million visitors is impossible if most travelers continue to stay only in Seoul. We need to create tourism products that link Seoul with regional destinations, while also expanding accommodation options in local cities and developing region-specific high-quality tourism content. Only then can we effectively disperse demand and ensure that visitors experience Korea's full diversity. Lastly, attracting 30 million tourists cannot be accomplished by focusing on new visitors. In other words, repeat visitation is essential. Unfortunately, Korea's repeat visitor rate is relatively low. This is largely because our tourism experiences and content remain limited in variety, and many aspects of our tourism environment are still not as user-friendly as they could be. To build a loyal base of returning visitors, Korea needs to offer a more convenient, smart, and travel-friendly environment, along with diverse, compelling tourism products that encourage people not only to visit once, but to come back again and again.
Right. Staying with that cautious tone then, Professor Shin, in neighboring Japan, spending by foreign travelers, it's included in the country's export list. And this spending now stands second on that list after auto exports and ahead of semiconductor and even steel exports. The revenue, however, Professor Shin, comes at the expense of the Japanese people who have been sounding the alarm over the years about over-tourism. Accordingly, pundits, you included of course, believe a feasible plan for greater tourism revenue needs to include measures against the risks of over-tourism. What do you propose, Professor, to promote healthy tourism?
Yeah, that's a very important point. Until now, Korea's tourism policies have mainly focused on increasing the number of visitors. But around the world, over-tourism has become a serious social issue. Even some destinations are organizing boycotts against tourists. So if we want sustainable growth, we need to shift from purely quantitative growth to qualitative growth of tourism. As I mentioned earlier, Korea has set a goal of attracting 30 million visitors within the next 5 years. However, discussions about what comes with that growth, such as social tensions, environmental pressure, and the impact on resident quality of life are still missing. This is concerning because the tourism industry cannot be sustainable if local residents are unhappy. If Koreans start to feel hostile toward tourists, visitors' numbers will inevitably decline, just as positive perception of K-culture encourage people to visit Korea. Negative travel experiences can quickly harm the country's image. This is why our tourism system must take residents' rights and quality of life into account. Most importantly, the economic benefits generated by tourism should circulate back into local communities so that residents can see and feel how tourism directly improves their daily lives.
Right, and speaking about local communities, Chris, in late October, I believe, Busan hosted its inaugural Global City Tourism Summit. Could you tell us a bit about this particular event, as well as your thoughts regarding its implications for Busan as a travel destination?
Yeah, this was an extraordinary event that they hosted at the end of October, the 27th through the 29th, a 3-day affair where about 400 distinguished guests from around the world that included tourism policy officials from 22 cities across 14 countries and representatives of international organizations, experts from academia, politicians, and people who are players in the tourism industry congregated in Haeundae around the Paradise Hotel and various other venues to discuss the future of tourism and especially how Busan enters into this equation, because Busan is looking to establish itself as its own tourism hub. And what Professor Shin was saying earlier about so much tourism in Korea being Seoul-centric, of course, we love Seoul. Seoul's a brilliant, beautiful city. It is the center of everything commercially and culturally, artistically in Korea, but it's not the only place. And so Busan is a wonderful destination. And so this meeting was to kind of sell Busan a little bit and also to make different connections, because the summit was designed as a global cooperation platform to strengthen the position of Busan in the global tourism network. And I think it was largely successful because as I've seen on the streets, I'm seeing every day, more and more people are coming here and Busan's profile is rising as another sort of flavor of Korea. You have Seoul, and then Busan's, it's a different vibe down here. It's a different feeling, but still a very large Korean city that's very exciting, very delicious. So I think this bodes well for Busan's future as a tourist hub. And hopefully people will keep coming here. And hopefully the connections that were made during this conference will continue to bear fruit.
And talking about those connections, Chris, speaking to the local media here, amid that summit in Busan in late October, the mayor of Rwanda's capital, Kigali, Samuel Dusengimumva, highlighted Busan as a model for Rwanda's tourism. What aspects of Busan did he seek to underscore, and what are your takeaways as a resident there in Busan?
Well, it's kind of an honor for Mr. Dusengimumva to want to replicate what we're doing here in Busan, because Kigali, Rwanda, is a massive success story when we're talking about African cities. It's widely considered to be the cleanest, most efficient, and kind of most pleasant city in all of the African continent. And there's a lot of cities that it competes with. And let's not forget that Rwanda in the 90s was the site of basically a civil war and a terrible genocide, like some of the worst things that can happen. And the country has emerged from that and reinvented itself, and Kigali is now a shining example of what a city could be. So that's a big compliment. Now, what the mayor of Kigali sees in Busan, of course, he sees the cleanliness that is apparent on the streets of Kigali mirrored here. Busan's a pretty clean city, generally. And so he respects that and wants to, find ways to sort of expose how we can keep our cities cleaner. But he was very, very taken with the technology which is going on here in Busan, especially the AI integration into the infrastructure and the water. The city has introduced all sorts of initiatives using technology and digitization to make things more efficient. Things from garbage collection and water and the electrical grid. And so Kigali, is good as a city as it is still looking for ways to become more efficient and to use this new technology to make a smart city. And of course, the smart city initiatives are being adopted in Busan. So I think they'd like to do the same in Kigali. And the implications, again, for Busan is just, it puts the city in the spotlight. It shows that, this is 3.5 million people in the city proper, many more if you include the surrounding area. It's a lot of people to organize, to transport, to, electrify. And I think Busan does a very good job of that. And then again, there's tourism, which is opening up as well. So I think he saw, the mayor of Kigali saw what we're doing here and understood it in a kind of intrinsic way, which was nice.
Right, indeed. Moving forward, Professor Shin, what do you suppose has been the impact of social media on tourism here in South Korea? I mean, if you were to walk us through the pros and cons of social media on traveling to South Korea among foreign visitors, of course.
Yes, social media today has a huge influence on tourism. As we all know, it's no longer just a marketing tool. It has become a direct channel for where people actually discover and buy tourism products. And travel is a very visual, experience-based activity, so people naturally share it online through social media platforms. That's why so much of what we see on SNS today is travel-related content. For the tourism industry, especially small businesses, this is a big advantage. Even without big advertising budgets, local cafes, guest houses, or small attractions can promote themselves through social media and reach a wide audience. It also helps lesser-known regional destinations get discovered, which can bring more visitors and support the local economy. But there are some concerns as well, since anyone can post anything. Not all information on tourism is reliable. And we are also seeing a rise in what I call photo-driven travel. This indicates that people visit places mainly to take pictures rather than to really experience the destination. When this happens, tourist numbers may go up, but the actual economic benefit for the community may not increase very much because visitors often spend little time and money beyond taking the photo. So overall, social media is a powerful tool that can greatly support the growth of Korea's tourism industry. But at the same time, we need to guide this influence in a healthier direction. Instead of focusing only on hotspots for pictures on social media, we should encourage deeper, more meaningful travel experiences, ones that highlight local culture, community stories, and the unique value of each region. If we can use social media not just to attract visitors, but to inspire richer, higher quality travel, then it can become a strong driver of sustainable tourism.
Right, for sure. Chris, with regard to photo-driven travel mentioned by Professor Shin, I wonder, is this so-called selfie tourism a phenomenon there in Busan as well? And if that is the case, what has been the public response to that?
Well, it's, you know, there are parts of Seoul where I think it's worse, but we are seeing it in Busan. I would say particularly in the Gamcheon Munhwa Mall, the Gamcheon Cultural Village, which is a beautiful collection of these tiny houses on this hillside with murals and artwork overlooking the water. It's perhaps the #1 attraction in the city these days, but it's also become a bit of a victim of its own success because it is so Instagrammable. You have, you know, busloads of tourists unloading there with selfie sticks and, you know, looking for that perfect shot. And souvenir shops have sprung up, and it's also disrupted the lives of the people in the neighborhood who I think enjoy some of the economic benefits but don't enjoy the crowds. And also it's, again, like to reiterate what Professor Shin said, it's getting that photo, it's checking something off the list while not engaging with the surroundings of the culture in any sort of deep or meaningful way. And so you see it there, maybe a little bit at Haeundae Beach, but generally people who come to Busan are already going a little deeper, I think, in their Korean experience. They've already left Seoul. They've come all the way down to the other end of the country. So I think people who come here tend to be a bit more curious. And also food is a big draw. That's why I do food tours as well as a part-time gig, and it's been a lot of fun just introducing people to, you know, we go to like pojangmachas and like little, like at machibs, little hole in the wall places that, you know, you wouldn't discover. And the people who sign up for these sort of experiences are very curious. And so that's why things like food are a very good way to key people in to the culture and also to spend their money in independently owned businesses and to benefit the community as a whole. And the tourists themselves get a great benefit. They go home enriched with this great experience, not having only eaten delicious food, but having seen the neighborhood and seen the cooks at work and, you know, the nitty gritty that really makes it all tick. So I would continue to encourage this kind of tourism. So I don't think selfie tourism is a big issue here, but you do see it. Yeah.
Right. Food tours, Chris, I have to admit they're my favorite as well. Thank you so much for pointing that out. I'm afraid that's all the time we have. Chris, as always, thank you so much for your time and thoughts today.
Yeah, thank you.
And Professor Shin, thank you very much for your insights.
Thank you. It was a big pleasure here today.
Right, you're most welcome. Right, on that note, we end this edition of Press Perspective. Thank you for watching. Do join us again same time tomorrow when we touch upon some of this year's news stories in pictures.
to set the facts straight. Get Korea right.
안녕하세요. 저는 인도네시아에서 온 방과 회원 무티아라 하이라니입니다. 반갑습니다. 인도네시아에 왔을 때 한국 드라마를 즐겨봤어요. 그러다가 한국에 와서 대학을 다니게 됐어요. 한국 사극 드라마도 즐겨봤어요. 왕과 왕비가 살고 그리고 신하들이 회의를 하고 그리고 궁녀들이 일하는 그런 궁궐에 관심이 생겼어요. 제가 제일 좋아하는 궁은 경복궁입니다. 그런데 AI한테 경복궁 그림을 보여달라고 했더니 그 엉뚱한 그림을 보였다는 제보가 있었어요. 예를 들면 궁 앞에 강이 있고 나룻배가 있다든지 산 꼭대기에 있다든지 이런 오해들. 제가 직접 경복궁을 소개해 드릴게요. 같이 갈까요? 경복궁은 대한민국 역사와 문화의 중심지로 여겨져요. 조선시대 왕실의 그 위엄과 격식을 제대로 알 수 있는 곳이거든요. 또 경복궁은 외국인 관광객이 많이 방문하는 그 서울의 랜드마크 중 하나입니다. 제가 경복궁을 사랑하는 이유 이제 아시겠죠? 한국에 대한 잘못된 정보를 바로 찾는 일, 여러분도 함께 해주세요.